I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity. eCamva is one of those things that makes me very excited to be a lecturer at UWC because it's like playing at work and so on. But yes, part of the fun is we're having this one module which is a very sensitive module, and the module is focused around gender-based violence. So the nature of the content that we cover with the students is very sensitive. So I want you to keep in mind the sensitive nature of the content that we share with the students. Besides the sensitive nature of the content of the module is the fact that we have currently 260 students registered for this module. And because we use service learning, which is a project-based, credit-bearing learning experience, it becomes difficult to manage these students in projects, lectures, and discussion. Because part of the service learning teaching methodology is that you need to take the student through discussion, reflection, so that the student can actually learn from those reflections. Yes. Yeah. So for me, with this module, there's a lot of preparatory work that goes into before we can start commencing the module and deliver the module to the students. So for me, it starts with creating groups, setting permissions for groups, because what I've realized as I was experimenting with iKamva is the fact that if I've got 24 groups in the whole class, I can actually limit permissions to the group members belonging to that group only, which is for me very powerful, seeing that we're dealing with the sensitive nature of the content, because it is around gender-based violence. And I don't know if you are aware, but our students are most of the time survivors, and to sit and deal with such sensitive content might trigger. I've seen the most amazing things happen and play out in classroom, in discussion rooms, and so on. So for me, it's very important to set a safe environment for the students so that they could share freely, because students tend to start trusting their group members. So it becomes really a safety net for them if they can only share their experiences with the members in the group. Another thing that I usually do is, yes, I know the eCamva people, Norila, them usually came, but I went as far to design my own orientation. Because I usually make it available for the students so that they can use it as a resource, as a reference. Because what I've realized was that even though it's a fourth-year students, our students don't come to the fourth year skilled and equipped to use iKamva. Yes, they had exposure in the first, in the second, and in the third year, but I think we should work on scaffolding the exposure of our students so that they can use all the tools available on the platform. So part of that is the orientation program, which usually takes me around about 1 to 2 hours, where I will share. And the next step would be to do a pre-test, kind of like a pilot, where there's no marks or anything. It's just that to get used to the platform, to engage in discussion, and so on. Yes, so some of the tools that I make use of is announcements, course email, the resources, the discussion forum, the chat room, and assignments. So what I would do is specifically, I'm going to focus on the discussion forum and the chat room. I create groups where only the students can participate. Within the discussion forum, there's a general forum. I leave that forum open so that we can have class discussions as a class, and so on. So for me, it's another one of the powerful things of iKamva. I can engage with Ashley, my student, as an individual. I can engage with Ashley and his group, and I can engage with all 260 students, which I feel I can use my judgment as a lecturer. When do I use which intervention to get through the content? I think I've covered that. Yeah, so some of the advantages is that it creates a safe teaching and learning environment. It allows educational conducive interactions between students and the lecturer, and even between colleagues, because if we are 3 lecturers on the platform, we can also engage in discussion. For me, the dimensions that I want the system designers to focus on is really the student, the teacher, the course design, and the teaching environment. That for me is important because those are all the stakeholders on this platform, and we all benefit from the platform. What I've came to realize is that students display positive attitudes using eCamva, especially if I set timelines. If I set timelines to the activities, it goes open, and there's a time that it will close. The student will be active. So it's almost like I know when I'm going to have a peak session. On those days, I try to make myself available after 7 because I know that's the time when students engage on the platform. Because what is important for me, when students engage on the platform within their group, it's important that the mentor, the supervisor, or the lecturer, the facilitator is there to guide them. So what I've also realized is if the lecturer, if I'm involved, students will be excited. They will be excited, they will engage, and we can just achieve success if the lecturer is constantly involved and not just posting the stuff and expecting a submission. Yes, it also reduces some of the anxiety. Students tend to become very anxious, and I think part of the reason why I asked Ashley to come and present here today is because students go through extreme anxieties when they experience challenges, and the lecturer is the first person that will get that message. And then it's WhatsApp messages, it's emails, it's phone calls. It's not a nice experience. So therefore, I'm trying to get the students so that we can try and experience what the students is going through. So I'm hoping it will be successful. The lecturer dimension, the opportunity to work with the class, groups, and individual students. Another thing is you need to give feedback timelessly, because if you miss that opportunity, it becomes the teaching moment becomes lost. The course dimension for me, it's a flexible teaching approach. It's a flexible in teaching location. I can do it out of my bed. Teaching methods, you can be creative, and even the teaching time. Students work right through the night. So I think it's not always possible to be there for them throughout the whole period of time when they engage. But at least if you come the next morning and just look and give a comment where it's necessary and so on, it is important. So Ashley can just share some of the challenges, and then I will just share some of my challenges. Or I can start with my challenges. It is labor intensive, Norina. I wish I could lose weight through engaging through eCamva, because I would lose a lot. My stomach would be gone. And it's something that your colleagues don't always see. So people doesn't really credit the time that you spend on the program. Managing students, managing conflict within groups, because group work, it's a very delicate process. Conflict can erupt anytime within that group. So it's labor intensive, and it requires you to pay attention to the finer detail when you plan. Yeah, from my side.
Okay, good afternoon. Okay, so I'm going to speak of some of the student challenges we experience. Okay, so first I'm going to say eCamva's new site is actually problematic for me, because I found because I'm a 4th-year student, it's my final year, it's current time, this year I have to work my hardest. And as you know, as a nursing student, we also have clinical, so we have to be at workplaces, so we're not on university all the time, because this is the time we usually use the eCamva site. So it was problematic. So initially, the new eCamva site was I was stunned when I initially used it, because we didn't have a proper orientation about the site, and so I didn't know how to manipulate the resources properly. So that was a challenge, because I couldn't get the most out of it. Then the connection challenges. This was really upsetting to most students, because as if we had a deadline to do an assessment, most of us would, because we are students, most of us would use the last hour or so to do the assessment. And for 260 students to use the site at the same site at the same time, using the same Wi-Fi, so it's problematic. So a person gets kicked out, me myself have been kicked out, then a person have to worry and stress about not having completed the test. So that was a problem, because then you can't focus on the other test because you're like, just did bad at this one. So okay. So off-campus students, I myself am an off-campus student. As you know, as students, normally the saying is the struggle is real. So now with only Wi-Fi connection on campus and not having a Wi-Fi connection at home, it is a problem because you have to use your own data. And what the eCamva site, it's because it's complex, it's more comprehensive. It drags time and it is very slow to use while using your own data. And most of us don't have access to computers or laptops at home, so we have to use our cell phones. And because most assignments we do at home, it is a problem because we have to stay on campus till like 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then still travel home and still have to do work at home. And the eCamva forum for the classes and the different groups, for us, it was for us to chat and talk about GBV, gender-based violence, and so we have to do it at night. And it's a problem because you do it at home, and the eCamva forum is very slow. It wasn't sufficient for me once this year, so that was a problem. So we couldn't do it properly. So we had to go to alternative methods. Okay, so notifications, delayed notifications of posts, announcements, and some announcements that then come through. It was very problematic because this caused problems because we were not updated properly, and especially for assessments, if you're off campus, a lecturer sends through a post on eCamva that, okay, now you have to, what's the word now? Can't get to the word. Anyway, if you have to do assignment, if you have to turn it in, there it is. Okay. You have to turn it in, and the post comes through, and you update your phone and say, okay, there's no new emails or no new posts on the camera, and you go home, and the post only comes through the night. You wouldn't know that you had to do that. You would only know the next day. So that was a problem because then you were delayed with that and other problems. Okay, so okay, so the system, so as I said, the system becomes very slow. That causes an anxiety, especially during this, and this leads you to, if you do an assessment, to do it fast, and now you're putting in wrong information, and yeah, thank you.
I think this year, to the team, I think when we went over to the new interface, I think that was when we just started using the platform for the module, and we experienced a major challenge because we couldn't get the privacy settings correct. So I had to postpone the usage of eCamva for the team to sort out the problem. But I think it took around about 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and so on. So I'm looking forward next year to make fully use of eCamva again, because it is. We do assessments. I use it for assessments when they discuss. Students need to write the reflection, and I'm using a rubric, which we also use the gradebook to do the assessment, and it works wonderfully. It's a very nice learning opportunity for the students, and students can always go back. When I look at the reflection, students come back and they say, Mr. Hoffman, this was amazing, because I can go back to week 2 and I can check my discussion, and all the information will just come back. So it's good for preparation for exams as well. Thank you.